Hello, audience of Elisha Space. I'm excited to share with you that I have Vadim Dekhtyar with us today. He is a distinguished professional with a wealth of experience in the fields of psychotherapy, neuroscience, and neuro-linguistic programming. He also currently resides in Chicago, Illinois, and is the visionary founder of Academy NLP and the owner of Life Balance Clinic. This has led him to a prestigious academic role as a professor of neuroscience at the NCNM University. I want to thank you for joining us today because I know the topic that we have is extremely important. With the books that you've written regarding My Bright Future, Natural Slim with NLP and Hypnosis, and Overcoming Fear, I know that your desire is for people to live their best lives courageously. Would that be safe to say?
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I think we more focus on my latest book, Overcoming Fear, and I will talk about fear and anxiety today.
Yes, absolutely. That is what we're going to talk about. Could you explain how fear affects our neurological systems and leads to physical health issues?
Absolutely. Fear is not just in our head, it's a full body neurological response. And when we experience fear, there is a small structure inside our brain, which called amygdala, which is basically alarm button. When it's triggered, it's initiate whole cascade of reaction, what we know is a fight or flight response. It triggers a surge of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which prepare the body to deal with danger. And let me say it from the beginning that fear is good, healthy, normal. Fear is it's a physiological, it's a good reaction. What helped us to survive as a species, it helps us to react in actual danger. But there are some issues around this normal reaction. Let me name a few of them. First of all, our brain doesn't distinguish very well external actual danger and internal what we can create inside our head. And it creates a lot of problem because the response the same. Often people try to ignore this signal. And I often explain to people, and it's what I write in the book, that even emotions which we label as a negative, like fear, anxiety, anger, it's just valuable information. It's what our body provides to our brain as an information to make right decision. When people try to ignore this information, it's like persistent messenger. It starts to come more often and knock louder and louder. And it creates a lot of physical symptoms. It's foundation of psychosomatic diseases. Explain more about how our emotions and fear manifests through our body. And next problem, it's, let's name it unhealthy fear, what we call the phobias, when we react to something what other people usually don't react. It's related to our ability of our brain to learn very quickly. Something happened, just one episode, and it's stuck as a phobic reaction in the same situation. Your brain is starting to respond the same as it was first time, and even worse, it starts to generalize. For example, somebody stuck in an elevator and it's generalized to any closed spaces. More problems with around this normal reaction. But of course, chronic fear or chronic anxiety lead to some health issues. It could be high blood pressure, it could be digestive problems, it could be headaches. It's definitely weakened our immune system. So there are a lot of issues which through the body if people not getting and not responding to this initial message, because again, fear, it's just information, valuable information, and it's up to other part of the brain to receive this information and decide how to act upon it.
What would you say are some of the most common physical symptoms that can be directly linked to fear, the unhealthy?
So let's start with mild, more severe, right? And first natural body reaction, would be muscle tension. And it's usually our neck, shoulders, upper back. In psychology, there's term as turtleneck. When we experience chronic tension or chronic anxiety, we tends to hide our head in our shoulders as turtle does. Unfortunately, we don't have where to hide our head, and it creates a lot of tension in this area, neck, upper back. And of course, it could be breathing problems, it could be sleep disturbance, very common, digestive issues, as I said, compromising immune system. But let me give you just an example: muscle tension. It could look not important, but sometimes it could be very severe. I remember one of my patients, let's call him Max, who came to see me because of chest pain. He was saying it hurts. And he had already seen a lot of doctors before me. He saw cardiologist, a pulmonologist, even gastroenterologist, who each of them tried to explain his symptoms through his organ or system. But after all the tests, they couldn't find anything. And they basically dismissed him as a patient. And again, at first he was pleased they didn't find anything, but this pain still persisted. And it was, I believe, his brother, whom I helped a few years before, who told him to go to see me. And he was very critical. He couldn't understand how I can help him when all these specialists couldn't help him. And what I noticed from the beginning, that he was very tense and his muscles were very tight. And when I started asking him, he was typical millennial, right? Who had his life plan, his idea of American dream, and it was all good to graduate from high school, to go to college, to get a job, to buy a car, to buy a house, to get married, and it's all sounded the right thing to do. But he realized immediately after graduating from college, he wanted to become personal trainer, and he became personal trainer. He got a job in a popular chain, but then something went wrong. He didn't get the salary he expected. He moved back to parents' basement. He drove his elder brother car, so he wasn't happy, and he was constantly criticizing himself inside his head, and then it created a lot of internal tension, which he didn't notice. When I pointed that he is very tense he was surprised. Basically, first time he started to pay attention to his body. And this
Mhm.
chronic anxiety and fear he lived created this huge tension which manifested in chest pain. So, and I helped him, first of all, to start paying attention how his body feels and started to notice his internal dialogue. Because again, he was saying things to himself, what if he would say to somebody else out loud, he would probably would be arrested. And we all do same thing. We criticize ourselves so harshly, so it's unbelievable, right? And it creates a lot of tension.
In your research, have you identified any long-term health conditions exacerbated or caused by chronic fear?
Yes, and both caused by chronic fear, and if there was some previous conditions, they could be exacerbated by fear. And again, I'm talking about chronic anxiety and chronic fear. And it's the same and more conditions what I already mentioned. It could be irritable bowel syndrome, right? Any digestive problems. Probably statistics say that
Could it also
70%. Yeah,
be irritable bladder?
yeah, it could be constipation, could be diarrhea, and it's 70% coming from our emotions. It could be headaches or migraines, chronic fatigue, because it requires a lot of internal energy when we tense all the time or we are afraid of something all the time, right? And it weakens our immune system. And we all remember it wasn't long time ago, COVID pandemic, right? Actually, now we can say that we have not one but two pandemics. One was COVID-19, and the second one that was fear pandemic. And now we're getting more and more evidence that fear killed probably most of the people because fear compromised the immune system, and then COVID did the rest. So it's probably the most recent example of how fear affects our body.
My practice, we talked before and when we were discussing ideas for the show, and I felt an immediate connection with you because there is a connection between a heart wound, a soul wound, I like to call them soul wounds, and your physical body. And when you're talking about things like mood, as well as other things too, but when you're talking about things around mood, a lot of that is around fear. It's just displayed differently. It just looks different, right?
Yes.
And I'm thinking about people that I've worked with that have had problems within the pelvic area, and their anxiety is around that pelvic area. So I find it very interesting that you're sharing this information, that a lot of that is fear. And I could say with my caseload, pretty accurate. That's what they're dealing with, you know.
From Chinese medicine point of view, which I practice now, it's fear is coming. There is immediate fear. I mean, it affects the heart, right? Our
Mhm.
emotions. And chronic fear affects our kidneys, not as a organ kidneys, but as a system, which means it affects our body very deeply from the
Mhm.
core. And of course, it reflects and affects us in many different levels.
Well, something, if someone is scared, if someone gets surprised or scared, a lot of times they will urinate on themselves.
All right.
So, how does the brain's response to fear differ between individuals? How would you say that it can
Yeah,
differ?
it's a great question. The brain's fear response is deeply personal and basically shaped by genetics, past experience, and even cultural background. And your listener probably definitely heard the term of genome, right? It's collection of genes. But now in neuroscience, there's new terms connectome. It's the network of neural pathways. It's how our neurons communicate with each other. And it's unique and it's deeply affected by our personal story, our personal experience. And if we can think about what the genome is our hard drive, and connectome would be soft drive, right? But talking about different reactions, they are similar to acute reactions. But when we have chronic situation, chronic fear or chronic anxiety, I would group probably three different reactions. Some people are freeze, and they feeling mentally and physically stuck, and they can't make a decision, trying to become invisible, avoiding conflicts by any means. It would be the first reaction. The second is withdrawing, trying to isolate, sometimes even physically to go somewhere, not to participate, with chronic procrastination, not doing anything. And the third reaction would be fight. It's becoming more aggressive, blaming, criticizing anybody. And again, this person sometimes even consciously can't explain why he behaves such way. For example, somebody having financial problems, right? And blaming family members of friends and so on. And if you ask him why he's doing that, he wouldn't connect these two situations. But it's, I would say, the most typical reactions to chronic stress.
Very good. I appreciate you for sharing those types of things because what you're doing is these are things that people might think as being normal types of behavior
Correct. Yeah.
when it's really from a place of a wound. And so,
Yep.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes. And people often, at least in their head, have explanation why they behave in such way. But very often there is no actual connection to how they feel and what they experience. It's why sometimes professional help they're definitely needed in such situations.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Could you, you know, Dr. Vadim, could you share if there are any new treatments or what are the new treatments or therapies based on neuroscientific research aimed at mitigating the physical impacts of fear?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna share my experience, and
Yes,
that's
sir.
will be about neuroplasticity. I read the book of Normal Deutsch, and in I believe in the first chapter, he wrote about laboratory of Paul Baccarita. And I live in Illinois, and this laboratory in Wisconsin. So I couldn't miss this opportunity. I called them and went to see. They developed what they call brain port, and it's device which stimulates the tongue and uses the whole idea of neuroplasticity because it helps with some conditions like brain trauma, Parkinsonism, and so on. But just stimulation of the tongue for 20 minutes helps to improve mood, helps people with depression, anxiety, and it was incredible. It's just like reminding the brain to pay attention to weakest part of the bodies. And I would say it's very promising. Actually, it started with the work of Dr. Bakarita of neuroplasticity when he taught people with no vision to see again. Initially, this tongue stimulator, and there is already device you can buy. It connected to the camera, and camera sends signals to this stimulator. And by stimulating the tongue, blind people start to see objects in front of them. And it's
That is amazing.
pure example of neuroplasticity. But then they discovered that non-specific stimulation of the tongue leads to great improvement in anybody's problem, including mental problems.
I feel like I was going to ask this question, so I apologize if I'm asking it again, but in a different way. But could you share a case study where a neurological approach successfully identified or treated an elusive physical symptom?
Yeah, but okay, let me approach an idea. The first step, it's always you need to notice, right? You can't manage what you can't measure. So in order to
Right.
manage any problem, you need to notice it first. And I usually start with very simple technique called thermometer of emotions. When I ask my patient to imagine the big thermometer, the scale from 0 to 10, and the different color of the scale. And let's say from 0 to 2 or 3, it's normal, healthy level of fear or normal level of stress, right? Like muscle tone, which we need to wake up and go through the day. So it will be green zone from 0 to, let's say, to 3. From 3 to 5, it's yellow zone when it's already more than normal. It's when this tension starts to build up, when blood pressure starts to go up, or some headaches or some digestive problems, and people usually not paying attention to that or not connecting it with internal state. And then it's orange zone with its manifested symptoms, what we discussed, what you asked me from the beginning: headaches, high blood pressure, digestive issues, and so on. So it's when people can't ignore it, even often. And then it's red zone, it's emergency situations, panic attacks, heart attacks, and so on, right? So, and I teach my patients to start using this device, to start measuring how they feel during the day, starting in the morning, what's the tension level in the morning, what's going on during the day. And sometimes it helps to start be more aware of what's going on inside the body. Sometimes people start to noticing that conversation with certain people raise tension pretty high, maybe colleagues, maybe family members, and it's often surprising them. But it's still better to know what creates stress in your life. And this is the first step to help yourself, first by just noticing how your body responds to different life situations. So I encourage your listeners to use this simple technique to measure the level of their negative emotions.
Right. This is just, you're blowing my mind with all of this information. And part of it is, it's what I do too. So it's kind of like very interesting to me. You've got me completely drawn in here. How could someone, I know that you have your book. Did you want to share a little bit more about overcoming fear and how someone can get in contact with you as well?
Yeah, I would recommend It's on Amazon. It's called Conquering Fear, The Path of Inner Strength. To buy it, to read it, I believe it should be in every home. It can help parents to deal with their kids' fears. It can help everyone to understand what maybe they're going through and why they react certain way. There are a lot of stories. I share my patient stories. There are a lot of simple techniques people can use. I big proponent of self-help. Again, it may not be enough, but at least you can try to help yourself, right? And doing something consistently can resolve a lot of issues. You can check me, my clinic. It's called website lifebalanceclinic.com. Read more about what I do. But first of all, I really would recommend to read this book, Conquering Fear.
And audience, I too believe that it's extremely important. There is definitely a connection between the soul wound as well as how it affects our physical body. I don't think overall that fear is a bad thing because fear helps you to survive.
It's good that you, we are
Yeah,
ending with the
yeah,
same how we started.
it
Yeah,
helps fear.
it's a good thing.
Healthy fear is a good thing, but I also think that fight or flight, a lot of times that impulse is there to help you gauge, should I go or should I stay? It's a survival. I think that's wise. The other side of that too is that sometimes it goes, when it starts to go to the extreme, and a lot of times that is tied, I don't want to generalize it too much, but a lot of times it is tied to some sort of a trauma, at
Yes.
least what I've found through the things I've worked with, so with other people. So what I would say is definitely get his book. I am planning doing a book club and I'm considering Dr. Vadim's book because there's just so many things about that we think is every day. And some of it might be every day, but if it's at an extreme, then that's when the concern comes in, right? So I strongly suggest that you check out his book. I will make sure to have Dr. Vadim's information so that if you are local in his area, to check out his clinic, give his office a call. I assume you're taking new clients. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So give his clinic a call so that you can get seen because there is a strong connection to the mind body connection. And the more you are working on healing some of these things in regards to your soul, the greater you will feel better in your physical body. So many people experience chronic conditions, and unfortunately, a lot of times it's tied to some sort of a soul wound. So I strongly suggest you reach out to him, check out his book. I will have his information in the show notes. And I thank you, audience, for joining me today. I'll talk to Dr. Vadim about possibly doing another show on another topic because I'm very passionate about this topic. You only get one life, so why not live it in a place of joy, you know? So, what I say to you, audience, is take the nuggets from what Dr. Vadim was talking about. And a key thing he said was consistency. So, my hope for you is within consistency, you will experience greater healing and that you will walk into a place of wholeness as you continue to move forward in your healing journey. I want to thank you all for joining us today on Elisha Space. It is a pleasure having you here with us as we had this conversation with Dr. Vadim. Go in peace. Thank you so much, you guys. Talk to you on the next show.